Starting now, we are going to do lesson 1-3, integers and absolute value. Integers and absolute value, they can be tricky, but if I said to you, what is, if you had a 10-yard loss in football, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Did you go forwards? Did you go backwards? Big thing with integers is there's a lot of language involved with going up or going down, positives and negatives. Evaluating, we remember how to evaluate expressions. That's what we've been doing. Just solving, bring it down. And now we have this absolute value to think about. So I would encourage you to have your notes out. Make sure those are getting ready to be checked and to help you with your NICU video or check your understanding that you will do after this lesson. Okay, so have your notes, have your vocab, and let's get started. We are on page 35 in our textbook. Integers. What are integers? Integers is any number from this set of numbers. So if I just have -4, -3, -2, -1, and then I continue on going upward with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what these dots mean is that those numbers are going to continue to go on and on forever. So integers are really, what they are is negative and positive whole numbers, to be more specific. So just kind of keep those things in mind, keep that definition in mind, look in your book if you need more on that. So it's made up of positive numbers and negative numbers, excuse me. Numbers that are to the left of 0 on a number line are negative. These are negative numbers, and they are to the left. As you go down, we always think down's negative. You don't want your bank account to go down. You'll be in the negative if you go past 0. To the right of 0 are positive numbers. That's when you're going up. We want positive, right? So those numbers that are greater than 0. Just keep those things in mind. We also have inequalities. Well, we know that if I said, well, 4 is equal to 4, you wouldn't argue. That's true. But we have numbers, we could be able to compare them. Okay, so this is when we're gonna be comparing integers, which we'll do on the next page. When you compare something, you kind of evaluate one against the other. So if I were to say I wanted to compare -5 and 4, I can use this number line here to find those coordinates, plot those points at -5 and 4. And well, since I know that numbers to the left of 0 are less, numbers to the right of 0 are more, I think it's pretty safe to say that I can say from this that 5 is less than 4, or written as -5 is less than 4, because it's further left on the number line. If I wanted to say 4 is greater than -5, that's also true because 4 is further right or greater on the number line than -5. We'll do some practice of those on the following page here. So remember that if it's facing, we read left to right. So when the bigger side is facing the left, we read left to right. This is greater than. So whichever way it's facing, greater than. The small side, we read as less than, left to right. Okay, so we're going to replace the shaded circle with a less than or greater than to kind of be able to tell what -2 is compared to -4 and to make it a true sentence, which is the important part. So you can use a number line, graph the integer on a number line on those coordinates to help you see. Well, I see that -4 is further left than -2. So, or I can say -2 is further right. So they wrote it as -2 is greater than -4. I could have written it as -4 is less than -2. Both of those are true statements. You can rearrange them to say the same thing. So we can try A through C on the bottom here. And my suggestion is just to graph them. If you don't need to graph them, that's fine. For this first one, I may not need to graph because this 3 is negative, this 2 is positive. And what I learned up above was that to the left are the negatives, which are less. To the right are the positives, which are more. So I can write negative 3 is less than 2. And I could check that. Negative 3, 2. Yep, it's less than because it's less than 0. For B, it's a little tricky. Negative 5, negative 6. Ugh, they're both negative. They're pretty close in number. So I do negative 5, negative 6. Well, is negative 5, since that's the first number, is that further right or further left? Is it closer to 0 or further from 0? They're both to the left, but negative 5 is closer, and the more left you go, the less you get. So I'm going to say that negative 5 is greater than negative 6. And then again, negative 1 and 1. Negative 1 is less than 1 because it's to the left, and 1 is to the right. Okay, so just being able to compare them. Just say which is which in comparison to 0, really. Speaking of 0, absolute value. We know absolute. If you're absolutely correct, there's without a doubt. And the value of something is its unit, its number. So absolute value means, this is what I would use in my vocabulary, or my own words, the distance between a number and 0 on a number line. So notice there's a little picture below here of comparing this value of negative 4 and 4. Okay, so negative 4 and 4. We're trying to find out, well, what do you notice? We see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4 is 4 units from 0. We also see that 1, 2, 3, 4. Positive 4 is 4 units from 0. So they have the same value away from 0. We do know that 4 is greater than negative 4, but they have the same absolute value. Okay, so keep that in mind. The distance a number is from 0. The symbol for absolute value is 2 vertical bars. So just like this. That's absolute value. So what we found out from this graph above, 3, 4, is that the absolute value of negative 4, if we write it, is, we know is equal, is 4. Negative 4 is 4 units away from 0. The absolute value will never be negative because it's how many units away if you just count, but you don't consider the direction. So 4 is also 4 units away from 0, so the absolute value of 4 is 4. If you want to make a prediction, what do you think the absolute value of negative 1 would be? Well, if I had my number line, negative 1 is 1 unit away, so we consider it a positive 1, the absolute value. So I asked you to evaluate negative 5. Maybe you're catching on already. Maybe you need to use the number line. Maybe you have to count. Okay, well, negative 5, how far is it from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. Negative 5 is 5 units away from 0. The absolute value of 3, 3 is 1, 2, 3 units away from 0. Kind of a neat little simple thing. Just remember, this will always have a positive answer on the inside. Anything on the inside will be positive. We're given a couple things here. You have to work those out. Maybe you need a number line, maybe you don't. The absolute value of 5. How far is 5 away from 0? Well, it's 5 units. How far away from 0 is negative 6? What's the absolute value of negative 6? Well, it's 6. So then I do 5 plus 6 is 11. So again, I simplify that nice and simply down in a funnel fashion. Next one's a little bit different, has a couple things going on. You kind of consider those absolute value as groupings. Do what's inside, or parentheses, do what's inside of them before you solve. So I do, well, 5 minus 3 is 2 plus 8 minus 10, add that opposite. We'll learn about these tricks, is, well, negative 2. 2 is 2 units away from 0. Negative 2 is also 2 units away from 0. So remember those symbols here, these lines, make what's inside a positive for a final value of 4. I think it's kind of neat. It's kind of just like changing roles. Lastly, we're going to combine what we did the other day with evaluating expressions. And so it says evaluate 8 plus the absolute value of n. That's how you read this. 8 plus the absolute value of n if n is equal to negative 12. So what I do is I take that negative 12 and plug it in right in place of n. So 8 plus that absolute value of negative 12 now is what? Well, 8 stays the same. Negative 12 is 12 units away from 0. So then I simplify by adding those together. Kind of neat, I think. And that is all in that chapter, or that section. There's quite a bit. I may recommend trying the Check Your Understanding on page 37. You can try the Check Your Understanding questions. I think it's numbers 1 through 12. You don't have to do all of them, but you can try some on page 37 to give yourself a chance at which ones do I understand. On the left margin, it tells you what examples to go to help you with those. And then we'll do our your other Check Your Understanding, have your notes and everything for class tomorrow. And make sure you are writing down your questions and any ideas or just thoughts that you have and bringing those with you as well.